Hello everyone and welcome back to Alternative Apex here for the second round, the Chinese Grand Prix of the Formula Equal season. We had a very exciting season opener with plenty of drama, so if you did miss that, do go and check that one out before I spoil it for you in just a few moments' time. But that should be enough time for you to get out of here, because it was George Russell that took the victory in the season opener ahead of Lando Norris. Max Verstappen looked dominant throughout the weekend, but he blew an engine in the race and threw away 25 points, no fault of his own, and found himself out of it. The Formula Equal series here, it's pretty simple. It's spec cars, and we wait and see who does the best with the equal machinery. For qualifying, let's have a look at the starting grid here today. It is Lando Norris on pole position ahead of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. A good bounce back for the Monegasque driver, but just behind Lando Norris, who of course had second in the season opener. Pierre Gasly, George Russell behind, ahead of Oscar Piastri and Nico Hülkenberg. Carlos Sainz in 7th place ahead of Max Verstappen, a disappointing qualifying for the Dutchman. Lance Stroll, Alex Albon behind, with Antonelli and Lawson just behind them. Franco Colapinto, a much better qualifying for the Argentinian, ahead of Oliver Behrman. Yuki Tsunoda just ahead of Fernando Alonso, disappointing qualifying for him. Esteban Ocon, another driver, had a strong round one. Hamilton behind him with an even worse qualifying for the British driver. Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bortolesso and Jack Doohan round out the starting grid here for the second round of the season here in China. Now, as I said, we already saw a very exciting season opener. These drivers with points on the board now, many of them towards the front of the field. You'd expect to consistently be getting those good points here. There's no sort of car disadvantage to worry about, but we say that we've already seen some mixed up grids compared to the first round of the season when you look here compared to that time in Melbourne. But on the pole, Lando Norris looked very strong in Melbourne, taking second place. And here, on pole position, could he be the man to take away that championship lead from George Russell? The 5 red lights are on, and we are racing in the Chinese Grand Prix. It's a solid start from both drivers on the front row, but Lando Norris gets clear of his rival into the first turn here. We see Leclerc ahead of George Russell, who's immediately getting past Pierre Gasly. Gasly now having to defend from Nico Hülkenberg, backing up his strong effort in the season opener to find himself up in the top 5 here early on. Pierre Gasly still side by side though with the German driver. Gasly versus Hülkenberg here. Usually a battle you'd see in the midfield, but not in this series. They're battling over a position in the top 5 here. The top 3 are all single file and pulling away already though, so they're going to have to try and sort this battle out if they want to stay in the battle for the podium positions there. Pierre Gasly looking to try and fight back as they head through the middle part of the lap. Side by side racing there. Pierre Gasly just ahead there of Piastri and Sainz. Behind them we then see that is the Aston Martin Lance Stroll on this occasion. Despite it being Fernando Alonso that really led the charge for Aston Martin in the season opener, it is Lance Stroll here who's had the stronger qualifying effort. He's now racing with Alexander Albon, the Williams drivers, both having a solid start to the season so far here. Behind them it is Antonelli. They're just outside of the top 11, or the top 10, sorry, in 11th place at the moment, looking to try and get that point for him in his first season here in Formula 1. The rookie driver looking to try and do something special here as we look towards the front of the field. Charles Leclerc is just ahead of George Russell, and it is still Hülkenberg. Piastri's got ahead of Gasly. They're 3 wide there. Antonelli trying to make a double overtake to the hairpin. I think we may have seen some debris go flying there in that collision. Could be some drama for at least one of those drivers, but it is, for now at least, Lance Stroll ahead of Antonelli, and Albon fights back against Antonelli through the final corner here, as it will be Lando Norris that leads us through lap number 1 here, and the pack is battling hard here as they head towards turn 1 again here. Antonelli on the inside of Albon through the first couple of corners here, really long tightening corners, testing the drivers and cars to the absolute limit here. Antonelli slotting in just behind, but with a good chance still of getting some points from this event. Behind them, we see that's Alonso and Tsunoda battling it out. Alonso, we expect to see him much higher up the field in equal machinery here, especially after such a strong season opener, coming home just off of the podium. Ahead of him at the moment, Tsunoda trying to get that position away from Liam Lawson. Lawson has a point to his name already this season from Melbourne. He's looking to add to that tally, but at the moment running in the 12th position, not exactly where he would want to be. George Russell is on the back of Charles Leclerc at the moment. Lando Norris, though, leads the way in the early stages of this Chinese Grand Prix. Gasly and Verstappen are battling here further down the field. Gasly having a disappointing start to his race, starting on the hard compound tyres and dropping back quite quickly at the moment. Gasly now in need of trying to sort of boost his way back up the order here, as we see that's George Russell on the back of Charles Leclerc for second place. He pulls out using the power of DRS and he's ahead of the Ferrari driver as they head into the hairpin now. George Russell into second place as there's battles further behind. Piastri has got ahead of Hulkenberg, at least briefly there, as those two are side by side behind. But we're watching the battle here for second and third. Charles Leclerc's going to use the DRS down the main straight. Can he get back in this fight as they head towards turn number 1? Charles Leclerc to the inside, he's going to have the run, he's going to have the position there. All of these top three on medium compound tyres, similar strategies for them all here. We saw the undercut being a very wise strategy in Melbourne. It won't be the same here in Shanghai, as we've got a battle packed of cars behind them. Hulkenberg, Sainz and Piastri all doing battle, but at the moment here we see Yuki Tsunoda on the back of Liam Lawson as they head through the really long fast right-hander, and look at that there, there's a tyre failure for Liam Lawson. He goes wide and his front right tyre is gone as they went through there. Really scary part of the racetrack to have that tyre go down at, and a tyre failure for Lawson and the Racing Bulls car. He will not be getting back-to-back points here to start his season. He drops now to the very back of the field here. Now we see Oscar Piastri is on the back of Nico Hulkenberg for fourth position here, looking to try and take that place away from the German driver. Piastri knows if he wants to fight for this championship, he needs to start scoring some big points here, but he's going to have to look at his mirrors, and he squeezes Sainz all the way to the inside. Sainz knows that with equal machinery, anyone can win this championship, and he wants that anyone to be him. Heading through the final corner, he retakes that position there as Max Verstappen continuing to make his way through the field. He gets ahead there of Alexander Albon now. Carlos Sainz is on the back of Nico Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg holding up a bit of a train here in his Sauber, trying to fend them off for fourth position. Realistically, fourth is the best he can hope for from this race. Carlos Sainz looking to try and take that position as behind him. That is Max Verstappen continuing to charge through the field here. The Dutchman really still sees himself as a chance at the podium. He should realistically have the speed to be in that top three, but with the poor qualifying that he had down in P8, he is going to struggle to get up into those podium positions. Behind them, you can see Antonelli has now passed Gasly, who started up in third position. He's now outside of the points here in his Alpine, although maybe not for long. He's going to fight back down the inside of turn 1 there. Good move from the Frenchman on the Italian. Both of those drivers, it looks like, on hard compound tyres. Perhaps Gasly feeling some damage of some kind there, as you see further down the field here at the back end. We see this is the other Alpine of Jack Doohan on the back of Franco Colapinto. He's going to go around the outside of the Argentinian driver. Australian on the outside, and he's going to go all the way around the outside there. Medium tyres versus hard tyres. Doohan gets the move done, and he makes his way up into 19th place. Colapinto there dropping down the field quite quickly. Started 13th, already down at 220th place there. Saving his best for last in this race perhaps there. As we look back towards the battle for fourth position, Carlos Sainz looking very strong at the moment in his Williams. He's going to go all the way around the outside here. That will give him the inside line for the final corner, if he can just keep himself level here through the exit, and it looks like he's done just that. He's done more than that. He's cleared himself. He's up into fourth position here as Carlos Sainz, the Williams driver, flying here in the second round of the season. If he can keep this pace up, he may well be the favourite to hold on to this fourth place, but maybe not, because look at that. Nico Hulkenberg back down the inside of turn 1. Max Verstappen now on their tail, and I have to imagine Verstappen here perhaps considering some strategic options to get past these two here ahead of him, because their battle will be holding him up, and watching that top three just drive away into the distance. Realistically now, Verstappen is looking at a fourth position at best, which is still not the points he would have scored in the season opener, sorry. But it's points on the board for Max Verstappen if he can indeed get that position away. At the moment, he's sitting 6th behind this incredible scrap here as they head into the S's. Side by side, Sainz just ahead of Hulkenberg here. The Hulk trying to get back in this fight as they're still battling it out all the way through this middle sector of the lap. Verstappen will be screaming in his helmet. He is getting held up drastically here in this group of cars. Piastri in the same boat. Stroll there as well, as a little bit of a lock-up from someone heading in to that left-hander now as we head our way into the long, fast right-hander here. Testing the drivers once more. Piastri on the inside of Stroll stays ahead of the Canadian driver. Behind them both, you see Alexander Albon there in the mix. just outside of the this battle, we see Pierre Gasly behind, but Hulkenberg is going to try and retake that 4th position, and he is not willing to give up this place in this race. They're still side by side here. Will any of these drivers think about pitting this time? Sainz does get that move done now. Will he come into the pits this lap? It's halfway through the race at the end of this one, and he stays out. They all stay out by the looks of things there, as Piastri still maintains his position over Lance Stroll. But look at this, Nico Hulkenberg. Wow, this is some impressive driving from the driver of the number 27 Sauber entry. He is absolutely putting up a defensive masterclass, and part of that defensive masterclass is losing the position, it seems, because every time he loses it, he takes it straight back there. Incredible stuff from him. Side-by-side racing behind there, Lance Stroll battling with Alex Albon there as they head up through turn 5 and into turn 6. Stroll just holding on to that position at the moment. He was attacking Piastri not that long ago now, having to look in his mirrors again now. We're lap 8 of the race, we're over halfway through, and Nico Hulkenberg is still running in that 4th position on the harder tyres. He'll have the mediums for his second stint here. In theory, he will have the grip later on in this race as they go side by side into the hairpin. Sainz trying to go all the way around the outside to take this position away from the German driver. They're side by side on exit. Sainz up in 4th position finally here, but again staying out on the racetrack here, but no sign of the others because they are coming into the pits here. Hulkenberg, Verstappen, Piastri, and pretty much everyone behind them by the looks of things. But again, just like in Melbourne, Lando Norris has stayed out here just that little bit longer. He's gone up for a lap extra here. We didn't see much of the top 3 in that first stint. Norris did have a decent margin over his rivals Charles Leclerc and George Russell. And as he leaves the pit lane now, you can see that is the case still. Lando Norris comfortably leading the Chinese Grand Prix here so far, and looking to add to his points tally after a very impressive season opener, albeit slightly lucky with the retirement of Max Verstappen. Speaking of Verstappen, he's come up through the field into 4th position there. A good strategy call by the looks of it from the Red Bull team has got him ahead of Nico Hulkenberg, who of course still leads this train of cars because who else would. Carlos Sainz going that lap longer, perhaps hoping he'd get some better tyres later in this race, not paying off too well there because he has dropped down into 8th position. Esteban Ocon now battling with Antonelli for 11th position at the moment. You can see Gasly with a little bit of a gap to these two now. Ocon, a driver who will be disappointed with how this event has gone for him so far, of course on the podium in the Melbourne race, now finds himself outside of the points there, but maybe he can sneak back in with the gap ahead of him to Gasly closing slowly at the moment here, as we see battling once more here. And who else would it be apart from Nico Hulkenberg here, side by side now with Lance Stroll. Stroll on the inside line trying to take this position away from the German driver as they head towards the final corner, and Stroll sweeps around the outside there. Good stuff from the Aston Martin driver, who was looking quite impressive here, but we've seen it before. Will we see it again? Nico Hulkenberg's in the slipstream. He's going to the outside. He's going to the inside. He's looking all over the road. They head into turn number 1, and look at that there. Nico Hulkenberg back down the inside. He takes that 5th position away from Lance Stroll. They're still side by side though. And wow, this is some good racing putting on display for us at the moment. Verstappen, this is what he wanted now. It was really this battling was really hurting him in the first stint. Now, with it behind him, it is really helping him indeed. Stroll managed to go all the way around the outside there. A good move from the Canadian driver. He gets up into 5th position there. Hulkenberg, can he stay close enough to make something happen down the back straight though? He's in the slipstream, he will have the DRS. Piastri behind. Surprising actually, he's not making more of an impact on the field so far in this one. Sitting 7th at the moment for another fairly mediocre result here as Hulkenberg. He's no man for mediocre results, at least not in Formula Equal anyway. He's back into that 5th position, looking to try and take more points here away from the second round of the season. Heading through the final corner now, Hulkenberg is in a very, very strong position here. Looking very good for a result here to be proud of in that 5th position. Lance Stroll in 6th though, looking to try and get into the fight here. He's been in the scrap for a while now, but the problem is he's got to look in his mirrors as much as he's looking forward, and we're going to see that again here, I imagine, as Piastri is actually now the one that's on the move. The McLaren driver finally has come to life here. He's on the outside of Lance Stroll here. Now, surprisingly, that is the line you want on corner exit here, because you get the drive, you get the traction, and you crucially get the inside line for the final corner. But again, you can see the traction out of that penultimate corner is more than enough to get Piastri past the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll there. The two Williams cars now, slightly different strategy here for them in this race. but especially in Sainz's case, going that little bit longer on the tyres, hoping that he'd get the places back here. And so far, that has not paid off. He's thrown away the track position, and he's yet to be able to take that back now. As we see, Lance Stroll is still in the middle of this group behind Piastri, pushing to try and keep up here. Sainz behind them. Oh, but no! Lance Stroll's lost it. He's into the wall there. In the Chinese Grand Prix, it's Lance Stroll who finds the barriers for Aston Martin. That's going to promote Ocon up into that 9th position here as this massive train of cars comes past here. And that is heartbreak for Lance Stroll there. He's out of the race. He's spun coming through the X's. And out of the points he goes. He was the lead Aston Martin driver here today, but now it looks like Aston Martin may well score no points at all here, as Hulkenberg, for now, holds on to that 5th place position. But up at the front, it has been a much quieter Grand Prix for our leaders than it was last time out in the Australian Grand Prix, because look at this, Lando Norris comes through the hairpin now for the final time, and he has a good gap to Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari and George Russell in the Mercedes here, as he heads through the final corner for the final time. It's going to be Lando Norris who takes the win in China. He bounces back from that 2nd place. He now takes the lead of the championship ahead of Charles Leclerc. George Russell completing the podium here today. Max Verstappen, another driver who needed a good race here today. He had the pace in Melbourne, but he couldn't quite get the result thanks to his engine's reliability. Hulkenberg, with an incredible defensive drive, somehow holds on to 5th place in this race. They were overtaking every single lap by the looks of things there. Piastri 6th, Sainz and Albon 7th and 8th. Ocon will get some more points to add to his tally. Not quite the podium he had in Melbourne, but still, at least he's got some points here today in China. The McLaren team are overjoyed with that result there. And can you blame them? Once again, they have shown incredible speed. And well, Lando Norris is absolutely flying this season so far. 2nd place in the season opener, just barely missing out on that win. And now backing it up with the victory here in China. George Russell, with 3rd place, will keep himself quite close to Norris in the championship standings. Charles Leclerc, 2nd place. It shows the potential that he has. We have to expect Charles Leclerc to be on the top step of the podium soon. But for now, at least, it is Norris versus Russell for this Drivers' Championship. Leclerc, Piastri, Verstappen, Hamilton, all drivers that you'd expect to see in this mix. Verstappen in particular, after the pace he showed in the Australian Grand Prix, we are really just waiting, I think, for another event like that where he just absolutely bores us, quite frankly. But for now, at least, only 12 points on the board for Max Verstappen here. It's not the start of the season he would have wanted in terms of results, but in terms of pace, it looks like he has got the pace to be fighting for the Drivers' Championship. When we think about the constructors, perhaps McLaren already looking like the comfortable favourites for that one. Here are the official results then for the Chinese Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc just behind Lando Norris. Lando Norris taking the fastest lap in this race. Top 3 covered by just over 5 seconds. Max Verstappen all on his own in that one at the end of it. In 4th place out of Hulkenberg. Piastri, Sainz, Albon, Ocon and Antonelli does just sneak into the points for Mercedes there. So the rookie gets his 1st point on the board, with Lewis Hamilton not even in the top 14 in that one. Disappointing for the 7-time world champion. Now, as we look towards the championship standings in the Drivers' Championship, as we mentioned, Lando Norris just barely leading ahead of George Russell. Charles Leclerc is sitting in that 3rd position. Only 17 points back at this stage of the season is really quite easily recoverable. But, of course, if momentum continues to go in the way of Norris and Russell, then maybe it will come to a state where Leclerc isn't quite able to do it. Ocon in 4th ahead of Sainz, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Verstappen, Piastri and Albon currently in the 10th position in the Drivers' Championship. In the Constructors' Championship, all of the legitimate teams have points on the board now. McLaren leading the way by 14 points, looking like the favourites already here in the championship fight for the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes in 2nd ahead of Ferrari. Williams looking solid there ahead of Haas, Sauber, Aston Martin, Red Bull, Alpine, and finally the Visa Cash App RB, Racing Bulls, whatever the hell they want to be called these days. Minardi is what I probably would rather call them, to be honest. But anyway, that's how the Constructors' Championship look there. After the 2nd round of the Formula Equal season here, I do hope you all enjoyed that one. Next time out, we're going to Japan, the Suzuka circuit. Will we see more drama? Well, from what you can see on the screen, you can already see the answer to that. It's likely going to be yes. So, make sure you tune in next time, next week, for the Japanese Grand Prix. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.